Here's something that frustrates me like crazy. I'll be looking for a campsite online, and the whole campground is booked, or at least the sites that I really want. But here's what you know. You know there's going to be a bunch of no-shows from people who couldn't come, people in the cities who are like, it's only $25. And therefore, empty sites that I could have used. It's an imperfect system. That's been a criticism of the Adirondack Mountain Reserve's reserved parking system to hike in places like Gothics, Upper Wolfjaw, Indian Head. The DEC thinks it's figured out a solution, and it's made the system permanent. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Claxton Hepburn Medical Center, dedicated to providing patient care and regional services to the people of St. Lawrence County. claxtonhepburn.org.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Thursday, May 1st. First up, a 17-year-old from Gloversville is facing 4 felony charges in connection with Tuesday's massive fire at the former Founds glove factory in the town. The blaze destroyed the structure and 2 others nearby. City police say the male suspect, who was not identified due to his age, was arrested Wednesday afternoon. He's facing arson, burglary, criminal mischief, and reckless endangerment charges. He was arraigned in Fulton County Youth Court and released. The 4-story factory in Gloversville has been shuttered for several years. The city had been planning to apply for state grants to preserve it. The spring turkey hunting season kicks off in New York today. As Kara Chapman reports, anglers can also start fishing for some popular cool water species.
Licensed turkey hunters in upstate New York and Long Island, Suffolk County can shoot the birds from half an hour before sunrise to noon each day through the end of the month. They can take 2 bearded turkeys during the season, but only 1 bird per day. Successful hunters are required to tag their birds immediately and report their harvest within 7 days. According to the DEC, spring turkey harvests in New York average 16,000 to 18,000 birds. The state's turkey populations have declined since their peak in the early 2000s, but are generally stable. The DEC continues to monitor trends. Aside from turkey hunting, plenty of angling opportunities also open today. The walleye, northern pike, pickerel, and tiger muskellunge seasons kick off. Spring is a great time for walleye and northern pike fishing. That's because both tend to stay in shallow areas this time of year after spawning. Pickerel can be relatively easy to catch. The DEC stocks tiger muskellunge in select water bodies. Most people who fish in New York must have a freshwater fishing license, except on certain days throughout the year. The next free fishing days will take place in late June. Kara Chapman, North Country Public Radio.
From now until the end of October, if you want to hike in one of the most iconic areas of the Adirondacks, you need to reserve a spot ahead of time. The reservation system out of the Adirondack Mountain Reserve has been a pilot program since 2021, but this year it's become permanent. It was set up to deal with overflow parking and safety concerns along Route 73 after social media sparked interest in hikes like the one to Indian Head. Emily Russell spoke with Katie Petronis from the DEC about the successes and limitations of the AMR parking system.
What it's done for people, we've heard in really good ways, is allow for people to plan their trips better. So rather than having to wake up at 2:00 in the morning and hope you were going to get a spot at a trailhead, you would know. And I know this because I've done it myself. I have a 10-year-old son, and we did it the first year of the reservation system. We've done it every year since. And hiking as a family with kids, it's been great to actually be able to know that we were going to have a spot, be able to wake up with him at a reasonable hour, plan a trip, go and have a good day. It's been really great for that kind of use. It's also really effectively managed that visitor safety issue. We've had very little, virtually no roadside safety problem since the reservation system began. Every year as the system ramps up, more people know about it. We're having less of the situation in which somebody shows up who didn't know about the system and we've had to turn people away. That's really what we want to avoid doing. So we've done a lot to manage for that. And we're finding that to be fewer and fewer incidents.
One of the complaints that I've heard from folks is that the parking lot is rarely full, maybe because of no-shows. How often is that happening and what's being done about it?
Yeah, so with all reservation systems, the idea of no-shows is a challenge that any system wants to manage for, and we certainly have. Those first 3 years of the pilot, we were tracking really closely who was coming when we had no-shows, why that was happening, and we've been making improvements each year, including this year, to try to manage for that and to cut back on that. And so in the first year, we did some things like incentivize people by letting them know, reminding them to cancel. We've done that every year. We continue to do that. It did help a little bit. We have also tried to allow for reservations closer and closer to the time of your arrival so that when people do cancel and the spot becomes available, somebody who wants to go hiking and they don't think about it until the day before can do it. So those changes, I think, really help too. This year, we've actually brought that even closer. So you can now make a reservation as soon as 4 a.m. on the day of your hike and be able to go same day. The last thing we're doing to really help with no-shows is slight overbooking. We had to really understand in the first 3 years how many spaces were available because we didn't want to overbook and have more cars show up than could be accommodated. We have a pretty good sense of what that looks like now. And so this year, what we're going to do is slightly overbook the system so that we can anticipate that sort of regular occurrence of no shows and make up for it that way so that we have as many people as possible in the lot.
Why aren't hikers allowed to just be dropped off and hike without a reservation?
So the problem is that we were having the road safety issue. And what we were finding was that people were showing up and it was leading to congestion at that junction, at the AMR parking area junction. It was leading to backed up traffic. It was leading to people parking along those roadsides. And just the drop off itself, it's a tough place to do that because it's a pretty narrow corridor right there. And so if we don't have a way to plan for people's arrival, what we risk if we tell everybody you can just show up and you'll be able to get a spot, then people aren't as incentivized to make that reservation. And you're more likely to go right back to the place where you have a lot of congestion. You don't have people using the system. You have people backing up on the roads. And so there's really not a good way to manage for that, which is why we've tried to do everything possible to accommodate a visitor who wants to walk in, but still do it through the reservation system.
I was just reading some chatter online about this system, and it's something I've seen over the years. People complain that this system, any system, really limits equity and access to a park area. So, what's the state's response to that kind of broader concern that any system like this limits equity and access to wilderness areas?
Equity and access to any state lands is top of mind for the agency always, and for every consideration, whether we're talking about a reservation system or a new trail or a new land acquisition, it's always top of mind for us. And so it was really important here in the way we developed the system. I think it had a lot to do with how we developed the reservation system's functionality. We thought about things like people who might need to come in via bus and making sure that they had a way to do that. And we thought a lot about how could we accommodate people who don't have a vehicle. And on the flip side, what we also heard was that before the reservation system was there were a lot of people who really weren't able to access these trailheads, either because there just wasn't parking available if they wanted to try and legally park, or because they didn't have a car and didn't have a way to get safely dropped off because there was so much congestion there. So I think part of what we were trying to do was also managing for that equitability of access. We also heard from a lot of people who had to walk, 1.5 miles down a narrow road in the middle of the summer and really didn't feel safe doing that. And as a result, didn't visit those locations. So I think certainly that's a really important consideration for any reservation system. And sometimes it's also part of why you need to establish these kinds of systems.
That was Katie Petronas from the DEC speaking with Emily Russell. Anyone who wants to hike from the AMR from now until the end of October must make a reservation ahead of time at the AMR's website. There are 70 spots available every day. We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Tim Ellifritz of Johnsburg and the Saranac Project of Saranac Lake. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.